Yeah, it's on. Stop smacking it, Steve.
Yes, the microphones are all live, so be careful with your comments.
That's under the cap.
Alan, there's no switch.
I just noticed. Thank you.
Alan,
Yep.
when you get to your car, it has a mouse control on it.
That's my big one.
In the front. You're going to have to get right up to the microphone.
I don't think it's on.
Try it again.
40. 40.
40. On my right?
28.
28. In the center?
95.
And on my left?
64, 64.
227 voters in the hall.
We have 227 voters in the hall. We have a quorum. A quorum being present, I will call this meeting to order as moderator for the town of Wareham. My name is Claire Smith. In order to have town meeting, we need to have a return of the warrant. Mrs. Sylvia, if you would please read the posting and the return of the warrant.
Good evening. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Plymouth SS, to either of the constables of the town of Wareham, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the legal voters of the town, qualified to vote in town affairs, to meet in the high school auditorium, 7 Viking Drive, Wareham, Mass, on Monday, October 27th, 2014, to act on the following articles.
I will waive the reading of the warrant.
You are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting attested copies thereof on or before September 29th, 2014, in at least one public place in each precinct within the town, and by publishing a copy of the warrant by October 9th, 2014. Hereof, fail not, and make sure due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of said meeting, given under our hands the 16th day of September in the year 2014. Wareham Board of Selectmen.
You see us walking gingerly. There's a bunch of wires back here. I would like to open the meeting with a salute to our flag. If you would all please stand. Remove your caps.
Forward. Mark. Mark time. Mark. Color. Full. Left. Right. Present. Arm.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we'll have the singing of the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, they proved through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I would like to thank the Wareham High School Junior ROTC and Mr. Steve Ruiz. For the benefit of those who may be here for the first time, I would like to introduce on stage so that you know who they are. To my very far right is our Board of Selectmen, beginning with Mr. Stephen Holmes, Mr. Alan Slavin, Mr. Peter Teitelbaum, Ms. Judith Whiteside, and then we have the Finance Committee, Mr. Dominic Camarado, Mr. Tom Worthen, Marilyn Jordan, Joan Fonts, can't see who's next to Joan, Mr. David Hurd, Jeff Langdon, and Chairman of the Finance Committee, Bonnie Catulli, and Mrs. Donna Bronk. Next to Mrs. Donna Bronk is the Assistant Deputy Moderator, Mr. Joe Ashley, and then our Town Administrator, Mr. Derek Sullivan, and Town Council, Mr. Richard Bowen. And behind us is our Town Clerk, who is the most important person here tonight, because without her, we can't have town meeting. She is required to take all the meetings and record all the votes. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to take just a very few seconds to take a moment of time just to recognize those that have passed that gave service and time to our town. If you wouldn't mind for just a few moments, please, a little respect for Mr. Charles Vandestay, Mr. James Newman, Mr. Frank Carmichael, Melissa Drake, Mr. John Calinosi, and A. Clayton Fuller. All of these people were dedicated people in town who served the town and gave up their time. Thank you, Mr. Pasevich. I do see you. I'll recognize you in just a moment. There are some rules of town meeting, and I want to go over them for the benefit of those that are here for the first time. The duties of the moderator of town meeting, not specifically provided for by law, shall be determined by the rules of practice contained in Robert's Rules of Order, the 75th edition, town meeting time, town meeting tradition, and those rules set forth by the moderator. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 15, whenever a 2/3 vote is required by statute, A vote may be declared by the moderator without a count and recorded by the clerk upon such declaration, provided, however, that if 7 or more voting members of town meeting doubt the vote, a counted vote shall be taken. This is in accordance with Article 12 of the October 27, 2003 town meeting and was approved by the Attorney General on November 21st, 2003. Now, the warrant, which was duly posted, is the agenda. And town meeting does not come to an end until all agenda items on the warrant have been decided. I will ask for a motion for each article, and I want you to listen very carefully to the motion. The motions will be on the screen before you. Sometimes they are not exactly as what was printed in the warrant. So remember that what we're voting on is going to be the motion that is before you on the screen. Following the motion, I will ask the proponent of the article to speak, and then I will ask for the vote of the Board of Selectmen and the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee. Now, sometimes there's a little confusion if you look in your warrant and you see a vote that might say 500, or it might say 330. What does this mean? The first number means those are the number on that committee that are in favor or recommend the article. The middle number is a negative vote, and the last number is an abstention. If you wish to speak on the motion, I ask you to come to the microphones at either end of the aisles. Please state your name. I would like no more than 2 people to each microphone, and that's for safety's sake. Please keep your remarks specifically to the article before us, and I think if we do that, we should be able to get through town meeting very quickly. I ask that those in the audience not interrupt anyone who is speaking. I don't want to hear any catcallings. I don't want to hear any comments. I want you to be respectful of those that would like to share with us their opinions. It has been tradition of this body that the proponent will have 5 minutes to speak and that others shall have 2 minutes, with the caveat that the moderator will not cut someone off in mid-sentence, and we will give you advance warning. Is that the wishes of this body? I ask for you to say aye. Aye. Those no? We will continue with that tradition. Amendments can be offered, but there will be no amendments to amendments. If you wish to give an amendment, I need to have it in writing. I do have paper here that we will let you have whatever time you need to write your amendment so that the clerk has it in writing. Now, reconsideration. Reconsideration, if approved by a simple majority, enables us to bring back an article for some further consideration. And the purpose of reconsidering a vote is to permit correction of something that was done hastily, something that was ill-advised, something that was an erroneous action, or if there was new material that wasn't heard. And that's my ruling on bringing up reconsideration. It must be moved on the same night. It must be made by a member who voted on the prevailing side. It must be seconded, and we can debate it. And it will only be permitted if there was hasty, ill-advised, or erroneous action, or if there's new information. Now, some important reminders. If you're parked in a no parking space that's a fire lane, I would urge you to go out and move your vehicle because the fire department will enforce it. Please turn off your cell phones. In terms of photographs, photos are only allowed with permission of the moderator. I have had members of the press that have seen me ahead of time and have my permission to take photos. They've also been advised that there's no photography taken during a vote. So before we begin, I also have to adhere to one of our bylaws. Our town charter requires that department heads are here with us this evening, so I will call a roll call of the department heads. Board of Health? Here. Chief Assessing Officer? Here. Community Development? Here. Conservation? Here. Management Technology? EMS? Here. Inspectional Services? Municipal Maintenance? Here. Planning? Police Department? Here. Harbor Master? Here. Town Accountant? Here. Town collector? Library director? Water pollution control? Town clerk?
Here.
Does the finance committee wish to address the body? Mrs. Petulli?
Good evening, town meeting members. I thank you for your attendance and your participation in these very important proceedings of town government. The Finance Committee has done its part in thoroughly studying the articles presented and offering you our recommendations. Now it's your turn to view the facts, reasonably and calmly debate the issues, and make a vote that is in the best interest of our town. As each year we find ourselves facing more and more difficult financial problems, it is even more and more important that we make good financial decisions that invest in our future. So I implore you to be open and attentive to the explanations provided for each article. Ask questions if you don't understand something, and weigh the article carefully on its merits without personal prejudice. Thank you.
Would the Board of Selectmen like to address the body?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking your time out to come to this meeting. We appreciate it very much. What the Board of Selectmen does basically is take all articles from boards, committees, commissions of the town, reviews them, and vets them out before they go on to the town meeting warrant article. At that point there, we and the Finance Committee vote favorable action, which is sometimes a misnomer because it gets a little confusing. But to keep things consistent, we vote favorable action. But if a vote was 2-3-0, it means it's not favorable action. It means we actually voted against it, just so you understand. Thank you again. Good evening.
Gentleman on my right, for what reason do you rise?
Point of order, Madam
State your
Moderator.
point.
I hereby request that the following 12 articles be removed from the fall town meeting warrant. Town of Wareham, dated October 27, 2014, because they are in violation of Article 2, Section 2-4D of the Town of Wareham Charter, which requires, quote, not less than 14 days before any town meeting, the warrant for such town meeting shall be published in full in the local newspaper, end quote. The articles in question are 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 15, 16, 17, 20, 27, 30, and 31, and they were not published in a local newspaper in full, no dollar amount, as required by the town charter. The intent of Article 2, Section 2-4D is to provide complete information concerning the town meeting warrant to the Wareham voters so that they can make an informed decision regarding the articles on the warrant. A critical component of this decision-making process is the dollar amount of applicable articles. The Wareham town voters were not provided this information as provided in the town charter.
Mr. Pasevich, again, what section were you referring to?
It's Article 2, Section 2-4D.
Mr. Pasevich, I believe that the warrant was posted in full, and I don't know if you're confusing with a warrant article between a motion. A warrant article does not need to contain specifics. It only needs to have the subject matter that is being discussed. And so I believe in going through the newspaper that every warrant was posted in full.
I would disagree. The town charter says that the warrant has to be published, and it has to be published in full. This was not published in full because there was no dollar amounts And the intent of the article in the charter is to provide the information necessary for the voters in Wareham to make a viable decision on the articles.
Well, I would have to disagree with you because it was published in full. Now, we also rely on town meeting time, so let me read to you from town meeting time. The basic rule may be stated as far as publishing warrants. Since the purpose of the warrant is to apprise the voters of the subject matter to be considered at the meeting, all that is necessary is for the article to include a sufficient description of the subject matter to provide the voters with substantial and intelligent notice of the nature of the business to be acted upon. And I believe that the posting and the publication did that.
Madam Moderator, I wouldn't disagree with what town meeting time says. It has no bearing on the issue because it does not overrule the town charter. This is required by the town charter, not by the moderator, not by town meeting times. It's required by the town charter, and none of those issues are overridden of the town charter.
Mr. Pasevich, I'm going to rule against what you have said. I'm very comfortable that the warrant was legally posted. The town clerk has attested to that, and I think that we will keep these money articles in the warrant, so you may have a seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, in town meeting, we have, in order to speed up some of the articles, what we can take up as a consent agenda. And that's in order, if you have warrant articles that generally don't require any discussion, they're of like nature, we can bundle them all together. I would like to put 4 articles in a consent agenda. I will give you the numbers and I will tell you why each one I feel can be acted upon as a consent agenda. If anyone does not want to see that article in a consent agenda, please say hold and we will take it out. So Article 12. Article 12 deals with the reorganization of town departments. The motion on that article is going to be an indefinite postponement. The town administrator is not ready to move forward with any reorganization. Article 17. Article 17 is the repair of municipal lights and period lighting. This Article 2 will have a motion for indefinite postponement. The reason for indefinite postponement, there is no funds available to be able to do that. Article 31. Article 31 is to replace an inclined wheelchair lift at Minot Forest School. Article 31 will have a motion for indefinite postponement, and that's because you will see it is included in the capital item article, so it's in another article. And Article 34, which is a petitioned article, was a street layout, to accept the street layout for Bachant Way and Lynn Road. This too will have a motion for indefinite postponement. The residents of those roads have not finished the process. They have not completed what needs to be done, and we are unable to act on that article at all. So therefore, it will have an indefinite postponement. Now, this consent agenda bears no discussion. So I have not heard any holds.
I rise to make a hold.
What article would you like to hold?
17. The only reason I rise to take that off the consent agenda is because it's a safety issue.
We will, since we have a hold, we will take 17 up when it comes up in the lottery. Ladies and gentlemen, all those in favor of indefinite postponement for Article 12, Article 31, and Article 34 for indefinite postponement, please say aye. Aye. Are those opposed? It is unanimous. Mr. Slavin, do you have a request?
Madam Moderator, the Board of Selectmen met earlier tonight at 6 o'clock, and the board voted to ask you to take Articles 1 and 16 out of order, please.
Thank you. According to our charter, the selectmen do have the right to ask the moderator to take those articles out of order and take them up first. I am agreeable to do that because they have to deal with our budget. and it has an impact on setting our tax rate. But first, before we get to Article 1, does the Capital Planning Committee, because we have several articles, would the Capital Planning Committee wish to give their report at this time? Mr. Gibberti of Capital Planning.
Good evening. Whoops. Sticking off on the jacket. The Capital Planning Committee has met numerous times since the last town meeting, and the participation by the various department heads in assisting the committee in evaluating the requests submitted were helpful, enlightening, and cooperative. Evaluating and prioritizing these requests obviously resulted in disappointments to some departments, hell, to most of the departments, as the priority items identified totaled in excess of $2 million. These had to be further reduced to accommodate the fiscal situation that currently exists. Everyone knows what we do not have, and that's money. But in spite of that, we all expect our services to continue. Article 2 in the warrant lists the items. From a safety and cost standpoint, we can't delay addressing much longer. This reduced priority list is asking for $180,000, not the $2 million that has been identified as needed. This is not meant to imply that we are not in need of these items that have been backburnered for this meeting. We will obviously be back in the future with future recommendations for additional capital items. As each meeting goes by and does not address these capital issues, the higher the bill will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to, Mr. Sullivan.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, I have egg on my face, and I'm going to apologize. The street lights is actually, the reason for indefinite postponement was because it is in Article 2. So we have pulled it out, so we will take it up when we get to Article 2, and I apologize for that. That was my fault. We could have put it in the consent agenda, but because it is under Article 2, but when the article comes up as Article 17, we will act on it as indefinite postponement because it's in the capital plan. So Article 1 is before us. May I have a motion on Article 1?
Article 1. I move that the town vote to amend the annual operating budget for the town for the fiscal year 2015 as voted pursuant to Article 6 of the annual town meeting held on April 28, 2014 and April 29, as follows. By reducing the amount raised and appropriated from levy, state, and local receipts from $55,010,564 to $49,013,171, with a reduction of $5,997,393 being allocated as follows. $2,747,881, Upper Cape Cod Regional Vocational Technical School District. $2,824,512, county and state assessments, and $425,000 overlay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
To speak to the article, please.
Thank you. This article does not change the bottom line of the budget. It is merely a formality to meet the Department of Revenue's preferences of recording the votes. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on Article 1? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote. The vote is to move that the town vote to amend the annual operating budget as you see on your screen. Requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous. Article 16. May I have a motion?
I move that the town amend its vote pursuant to Article 9 of the annual town meeting held on April 28, 2014, and April 29, 2014, to the following: that the town appropriate $4,870,507 from Water Pollution Control Facility enterprise revenues, reducing the appropriation from $5,694,050 and $1,773,780 from Water Pollution Control Facility betterment revenue and betterment reserves to defray Water Pollution Control Facility direct costs, and that $823,543 as appropriated under Article 6 of the said annual town meeting to be used for Water Pollution Control Facility indirect costs to fund the total costs of operations of the Water Pollution Control Facility enterprise.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a vote of the Board of Selectmen? Oh, to speak to the article.
Thank you. And this is the same as Article 1. This article does not change the bottom line of the budget. It is merely a formality to meet the Department of Revenue's preferences of recording votes. Thank you.
I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
The Board of Selectmen voted 3-0-0 favorable action.
Vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 6-4, 0 against, and 0 abstained. Finance Committee recommends favorable action on this article. It's a request by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue to clarify some ambiguous language in the original article. This action does not change the final budget as voted by town meeting.
Is there anything to be said on the article? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote. Your vote is on Article 16. Move that the town amend its vote pursuant to Article 9 of the annual town meeting held on April 28th. As you see the motion before you on the screen. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous. Now, the rest of the warrant articles we do by lottery as per our charter. Madam Clerk. Article 32. Article 32, may I have a motion?
Article 32, I move that the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of the Ethel E. Hammond School, so-called, and is further described in a filing on file of the office of the town clerk from the school committee held for school purposes to the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purposes, including sale or other disposition.
Do I have a second? Second. To speak to the article?
Following a reorganization of the schools, the Ethel E. Hammond School is no longer needed by the Wareham Public Schools for education of students.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 7-4, 0 against, and 0 abstained. We recommend favorable action on this article to transfer care, custody, and control of the Ethel E. Hammond School from the school committee to the Board of Selectmen, as the school is no longer using the building. This article is a formality, as a vote of the town meeting is required in order for the town to take any action relative to the building.
On my right.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3. Is it possible to specifically identify the map and lot number of not only the land that the building is on, but the land surrounding the building, so we know specifically what's being discussed?
don't know that anybody has that information. If anybody has that and can answer
I
it.
did pull it from the assessors, if I may. It's map 1, lot 1,021 for the building, map 1, lot 1020 for the land. So there's no question as what's being transferred back to the town.
Mrs. Slavin, there is a plan on file at the town clerk's office, so it has already been filed. So they do have a record exactly of what is being transferred.
So we don't need it in the motion?
No.
Because it doesn't say anything about the land surrounding the building.
Nope, it says, as further described in a filing on file in the office of the town clerk. So because that is in the motion, it will send anyone that wants to know what it is to the town clerk's office, and she will have the map and lot number.
Okay, can we verify that that's what is expected? We did receive.
The town clerk says she did receive it.
Thank you.
Am I right?
Marie Strawn, former teacher at Ethel Hammond. What does this mean about the playground? What is the town or the school department going to do about that? If they sell the school to a private developer, do we lose the playground too?
To answer the question?
I would say that's well into the future, if anything. I really can't answer that. There's truly no plans. It's just being turned over to the town now.
I think Mr. Sullivan has answered the question. Mrs. Slavin.
The playground is on a different lot number. So it's not included in the lots we're talking about.
Just a minute, ladies and gentlemen.
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Titlebaum?
perhaps I can assist former teacher Strawn with this. In order for the town to sell any property, it would have to come back through this body for a subsequent vote. All this does is take it out of school use and put it into municipal use. If there's any attempt in the future, if anybody's interested in the property, if the town is desiring to sell it, they have to come back here for this body to get authorization. So this doesn't mean that if you vote in favor of this transfer of control tonight, that the town could go ahead and sell the property tomorrow.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 32? Seeing no one standing, this does require a 2/3 vote because it is a change of purpose. Therefore, I would ask, if possible, for a unanimous vote, and the vote comes that we moved that the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of the Ethel E. Hammond School to the town as presented before you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 13. May I have a motion?
I move that the town of Wareham vote to expend interest earned from loan repayments made between the town of Wareham and the Wareham residential property owners as authorized under Chapter 111, Section 127B and a half, and/or Chapter 29C of the general laws for use for the administration of the septic loan program and for additional so-called betterment loan projects.
Do I have a second?
Second.
To speak to the article?
This is a housekeeping article to ensure that the town conforms to the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection's regulations under the Massachusetts Water Pollution Abatement Trust Title V Septic Loan Program. This article authorizes that interest earned on those loans made to the individual homeowners be used for the program's administration and to make additional loans. This is currently run by the Community and Economic Development, or CEDA.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 5-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 8-4 for, 0 against, and 0 abstained. We recommend favorable action on this article. It's an annual article that authorizes Cedar's use of interest earned for the administration of the loan program.
Is there anything to be said on Article 13? Seeing no one standing, the vote will now come on Article 13. To move that the Town of Wareham vote to expend interest earned from the loan repayments made between the Town of Wareham and the Wareham residential property owners regarding septic system loans. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 10.
Article 10, I move that the town vote to amend the Wareham Wetlands Protective Bylaw, Section XV11, 17, Exception 3, as follows. Quote, the Conservation Commission may waive or reduce the no-activity zone requirements listed above if, in its judgment, such a reduction is necessary to accommodate a project that will have an overall benefit to the public and or to the environment, such as a sewer expansion project or a wildlife enhancement project. The new wording reads, and shall waive or reduce the no-activity zone requirements to the extent necessary to provide reasonable shoreline access to disabled individuals, as such disabled individuals are defined by the American with Disabilities Act.
Do I have a second?
Point of order, Madam Moderator.
State your point.
That's an incorrect motion from a prior version.
Is the motion that's on the screen the correct one?
Wording has changed.
Let me just review what's here on the paper, which I believe is what's on the screen. Through you, Madam Moderator, to Town Council, I believe the latest version of this made specific recommendation to the definition of a family. What constituted a family and a family member.
Okay, just, he's going to look to see if he...
Right, I believe he probably has it on his computer.
It is in here.
Madam Moderator, I believe it's in the explanation that Mr. Tyler Baum's referring to.
It is in the explanation.
He's going to get my iron. He's going to get my iron.
Right.
Okay, we have the motion before us. It's been seconded. I'll go through the normal process, and then if you would like to make an amendment to the motion to include that language.
Well, through you, I'm just waiting to see whether Attorney Bowen was able to locate the final version that should have gone up on the screen. If he has, I would offer a motion to amend.
Okay, so in the meantime,
Right.
To speak to the article?
Sorry for the confusion, folks. In the meantime, still speak to the article. This article seeks to add an additional exemption to 6 existing exceptions to the 30-foot no activity zone included in the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw by adding a 7th exception so that disabled individuals, as they are defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act, are able to access shoreline areas in the same manner as the able-bodied can. Okay, you will notice that the motion language is slightly different than the language in the article, as it was pointed out to us that the ADA may not be applicable to private land. The language in the motion takes this potential issue off the table, as it uses the ADA solely as a measuring stick to define what a qualifying disability is. Further, it uses state law definitions to identify the owners and their immediate family members who would be eligible for a waiver. This limitation to owners and immediate family will prevent frivolous attempts to circumvent the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw by those claiming to have a friend or acquaintance who uses the property. The process would work as follows. A disabled property owner or a property owner with an immediate disabled family member would be required to apply for a waiver. They would also be required to provide proof of the disability in order to be eligible for the waiver. The requirement of proof is the same requirement handicapped drivers must present to the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles to receive a handicap placard that permits parking in a handicapped spot. That is, a form signed by a physician, nurse practitioner, or chiropractor stating the nature of the disability. This requirement will prevent people from pretending they are disabled to take advantage of this exemption to the bylaw. Okay, that's sort of the technical stuff about the proposed bylaw. What I'd like to speak to you about is how we as a town need to do much better when it comes to making accommodations to assist the disabled to live their lives and to access the same places and things those of us who are able-bodied can. I'm more than a little embarrassed to say that as a town, we don't have a great track record when it comes to making life easier for the disabled. One example of this is that it took a complaint to the State Commission on Disabilities to get us to put up correct handicapped parking signage in the parking lot between Town Hall and the Multi-Service Center. That parking lot is controlled by the Board of Selectmen, so shame on us for not acting to take care of that complaint ourselves. Another example is the recent passing of a gentleman on Onset Ave who was being pushed home in his wheelchair by a friend when he was run over by a driver in the street. While we do not know exactly why the gentleman was in the street, not in the sidewalk, the State Office on Disability is now demanding that we provide plans to repair the sidewalk. So we must do better than this. We need to improve our reputation so that we are viewed as a community that is friendly to the handicapped. Beyond that, allow me to appeal to your own self-interest. Our population is aging, and one day it might be one of us who needs that waiver to get down to the beach, to enjoy a nice summer day on the sand, or to fish. That is why the Board of Selectmen created and unanimously supported this article, and it is why we ask that you pass it tonight.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable, action 500.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
I'm going to explain something in that the original vote of the Finance Committee on the article as presented to us, which is basically on the screen above you, was a favorable action, 8-4, 0 against, and 0 abstain. I take exception with adding extra wording to this motion without reviewing it prior to this meeting. However, as the article was originally presented to us, we do recommend favorable action on it, only where it conforms to the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Finance Committee does not take any opinion with any specific accommodations or project.
Thank you. Mr. Titlebaum, would you like to present an amendment to Article 10?
Madam Moderator, through you to the body, the amendment would be as follows. That would be to leave the language up there as you see it and to add the following sentence. Eligible applicants shall be property owners whose family members, spouses, parents, children, brothers, and sisters are disabled as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Do I have a second? I have a second. To speak to the article, I have had a request by a non-registered voter who would like to address the body and would like courtesy of the floor. Is there any objection to having Mr. Bill Clemmy of 18 Winship Ave speak to the body on this article? Did I hear an objection? Then I will put it before the body for a vote. All in favor of allowing Mr. Clemmy to speak to the body, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
I'm going to take a vote. All those in favor of allowing Mr. Clemmy, please raise your hand. Will the tellers please come forward and take a count? If you are a registered voter, you need to sit in the other section to be counted. You're sitting in the non-registered voters, so you need to move into a voting section in order to be counted. In the front.
26, 2-6.
On my right.
3-0.
33.
Forty-seven. 4-7.
47, and on my left?
47, 4-7.
47. All those opposed, please raise your cards. In the front?
7.
7. On my right?
12.
12. In the center?
64. 6-4.
6-4. And on my left?
21, 2-1.
The vote is 150 in favor, 104 in the negative. Mr. Clemmy, you have the floor. You have 2 minutes to address the body.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Clummy, 18 Winship Drive. First, I just want to say this is about the fourth iteration of the article that we've seen. As Madam Chairman of the FinCom had said, that was not the article that was presented to them that they voted on, and they reserved their statements. I'd like to start off by saying if the town feels it has some issues with their ADA compliance, that's great, but this particular article does not speak to that. The article is actually flawed for several reasons. You don't need an exception for ADA compliance for public projects. The town can do that today. It states it right there in the beginning of this article. The public good exception already exists. The town can get an exemption by the bylaw today for any project for the public good. They don't need to change the bylaw for that. The Americans with Disability Act would only apply if it involved public accommodations for commerce, like a movie theater. The rationale for the bylaw does not make sense. Commerce is not involved in regulation of wetlands on private property. The process by which this article got here is flawed. The article has been proposed in 3 different iterations. There was a proposed change to the wetlands bylaw, but it was not proposed, reviewed, or approved by the Conservation Commission, and I'd ask for the Conservation Commission's opinion. If someone wants to change the town's wetland bylaw, they should present to the Conservation Commission for a full review and have them submit it. This article has never been reviewed or submitted by the Concom. Furthermore, as stated, the FinCom voted the article before the final change was made, which raised some questions about its applicability to private or public projects. What the article is trying to do
20 seconds.
Thank you. The BOS has the right to submit bylaw changes, but this article was not submitted after careful consideration of the issue. It was issued after some comments from the applicants. Please do not vote for this article. It is flawed. Please let the Conservation Commission do their job as the people who represent wetlands protection in this town. Let them come back with the article next year after better review and a solid review. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on my right?
Commission. Better. Sandy Slavin, Vice Chair, Conservation Commission. Previous speaker is right. Conservation Commission had no say in this. We were surprised to have it presented by the Board of Selectmen without any input from our commission. Previous to this being presented, we as a group had discussed that our wetland bylaw would be reviewed for Springtown meeting since we wanted public input from it, and we didn't respond to a request to have it modified until we had a chance as a group to talk about it, open it to the public for discussion. Conservation Commission requests that this not be dealt with tonight, that it goes for further study.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 10? Mr. Titlebaum, you've had your 5 minutes, so I need to let someone who has.
I didn't manage to save any of it?
Yeah, you have a minute left, so after everyone else has had a chance to speak, we will give you your minute. On
Yes,
my
sir.
left? On my right?
Savage, 42 McKinley Street. The previous speaker said that she wanted to have this go to further study. Was that an amendment?
No, we don't allow amendments to amendments. So we have an amendment before us. It would have to wait until after we act on the amendment.
Thank you.
On my left?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. We're just talking about allowing an exemption for disabled people, are we not? Is that what this is about?
To answer the question, Mr. Titlebaum?
Correct. And a limited exemption whereby the people would have to go before a Conservation Commission and provide their bona fides as to the actual disabled family member.
Okay, but it's about disabled people.
Correct.
I can't believe that we're going to debate whether we should allow an exemption for disabled people. This is insane. Realistically, if the Conservation Commission wants to review this over the next 6 months and bring it back, with a recommendation that does anything other than allow disabled people access to the waterways, then I would urge repeal of the bylaw completely if that were to ever happen. But I can't imagine that this body will vote for further study anything that's only here to support disabled people. Thank you.
Gentleman on my left.
Madam Moderator, Cliff Sylvia, Precinct 1. I'm just going to sort of echo the previous speaker. To me, and I've been coming to town meeting a long time, even having a debate on this article to me is kind of ridiculous, because we're not changing the scope of the article. There's already exemptions already exist. What we're allowing a property owner to do is to allow either he, she, or a member of their family access to the waterways. I just can't believe we're having this debate over something that's so obvious.
Gentleman on my right.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bob Russo, Precinct 2. I've listened very carefully. This seems like a no-brainer to me. We have, as opposed to provide provisions for handicapped people, be they veterans, and especially veterans and others, to access public waterways. And I understand, Mrs. Slavin's concern, but if this was a new bylaw and we were changing completely the conservation requirements here, I could see where the Conservation Committee would want to do a major study and refer back to us. But I don't see that being the case. This is a very minor and very limited restriction. And to go through this kind of a procedure on this, to me, does not make sense. So I would urge you to vote in favor of it.
Gentleman on my left.
Yes, Carboni, First Precinct. And again, this is not a popular decision, but I'm also on the Conservation Commission. And we were voted, so reminding the body that we voted unanimously for further study, not to kill the bill or anything like that, but just to have further study on it. And, we fully understand the intent and purpose of this. It's, it is a common sense item, but we wish to take a different approach, one that addresses different concerns, because bylaws shouldn't be taken lightly. They shouldn't be changed on the fly. They have legal long-term consequences. Point of reference, like when an address change or a change of property, does that existing exemption happen for the new owner? There's nothing in this bylaw that addresses change of property. So, the Concom's overall intent is to be fair, firm, and consistent in enforcing the federal, state, and local bylaws that this body approves, because the intent of a bylaw is to further examine each project as it comes up and either approve, modify, or deny. And of course, while no law is perfect and addresses all situations, the existing bylaw we have that this body approved, fits the majority of the projects that arise and has served the town well.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Conservation Commission agrees to submit a further review of this bylaw, one that is fully vetted in public venues and legal review, and to be presented at the future town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman on my left.
Ron Enos, Precinct 3. First of all, I'd like to commend the Board of Selectmen for having the courage to stand up and take on this type of article. It's important to the folks in this town that we do the right thing for the folks with disabilities. This is not a citizen's petition, but an article drafted and presented by the selectmen, the executive body of the town. This is a bylaw amendment, which is the right of the citizens of the town to vote on. The amendment is needed to correct a flaw in the bylaw that affects many handicapped families in this town. The right to get to on your land as a handicapped individual and your family is a right that I believe we should all have. To Selectman Teitelbaum's comments earlier about all of us are getting a little older and may need this at some point, I think it's a valid point. This amendment should be acted upon now. The motion, any motion for further study, should not be accepted by the body, as any future correction can be handled in the same way for any other additions that are required or necessary. This item before us now should be acted upon. Voters should have the right to fix this issue now. The townspeople should not be intimidated by outside influences
30 seconds.
and the threat of litigation. This is just a further example of bullying tactics. This body should send the right message that we take care of our disabled in Wareham. This is not Mansfield.
Mr. Holmes?
Madam Moderator, if I could ask you for a point of clarification, please.
Yes, Mr.
Exactly what was changed? Exactly what was changed this evening on that board?
I believe the addition would be applicant shall be property owners whose family members, i.e. spouses, parents, children, brothers and sisters, are disabled as defined by the American with Disabilities Act.
So, Madam Moderator, it's just the American with Disabilities Act was in the original article, so the only thing that was changed here was spouses, parents, children, brothers and sisters, someone defined family.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And people are outraged over that? Madam Moderator, it's my turn to speak now? Or am I still on my point
You're
of...
still on your time.
Okay. You answered my point, and now I can speak?
Yes.
Okay. I find that unbelievable that people would be offended that someone had to define a family, and that would change their vote to defend the handicap of our town and to give our handicapped people access to something, anything. And because it would change their vote, if the Finance Committee wants to stand up and change their vote, stand up and change it. That's okay with me. But folks, come on. This is not changing any conservation issue. People you want to study your conservation bylaws, go right ahead. But fix this for the handicapped people of our town. This is, Madam Moderator, this is ridiculous. Thank you.
Mrs. Cattouli, ladies and gentlemen, please, let's keep the comments inside, not outside. We won't have any outbursts.
I'd like to clarify my statement in that the Finance Committee was not provided with all of the information at the time of our vote. I specifically asked a member of the Board of Selectmen whether we were talking about public access or whether we were talking about private access. And that answer was not what I was just presented with, okay? What has been added on here, this specifically says that benefits the public and or the environment, such as a sewer expansion project or a wildlife enhancement project, and shall waive or reduce the no activity zone requirement to the extent necessary to provide any reasonable accommodation, etc. That is what the Finance Committee voted on, okay? We have an integrity to uphold here. All right? I do not want to lie to this public and say we recommend what is up on that board, because I'm not going to stand here and take a poll of the FinCom to find that out. All right, but now you have added private property, specifically private property. That is the difference. You have added property owner, period. That is private property, not public access.
Thank you. Gentleman on my left.
Thank you.
I have a motion to move the question. And to end all debate, I will call for a motion to move the question. It requires a 2/3 vote. I will try for unanimous. All in favor of moving the question? All those opposed? It is unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, the vote will now come before you on Mr. Teitelbaum's amendment to Article 10. The motion before you is the motion that is up on the screen. So the vote that we have before us is the amendment that Mr. Titlebaum made that is on the screen before you. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes by a majority. The amendment now becomes the main motion. Is there any further discussion on the main motion that is before you? Am I right?
Yes, Sandy Slavin, Vice Chair, Conservation Commission. I do ask that we do further study. When this was first brought to our attention, it was recommended that our bylaw be changed to include the word as an exception to the 30-foot no activity zone to allow access to a beach. That was the first recommendation. And then we were given a letter from an attorney that talked about the Disabilities Act. I really would like this body to vote for further action to give the Conservation Commission the time to research what this means, and if there is another way to modify the bylaws to allow access through the wetlands for any and all people. Thank you.
Are you making an actual motion, Mrs. Slavin, for further study?
Yes, I am making a motion for further study.
Okay. Mr. Ashley will bring you a paper that you need to fill out with your motion so that the clerk has a record of it. Do I hear a second on Mrs. Slavin's motion for further study of Article 10? We have a second. The discussion now becomes on Mrs. Slavin's motion for further study, and that's all I want to hear is why we should or should not further study this article. On my left.
Thank you. Ron Enos, Precinct 3. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, the commission has done a wonderful job in the past of some of these articles and changing what is necessary. There is no reason that they can't, in the future, continue to review this and come forward with additional changes to this in the spring, next year, whenever they feel like doing that. But we have an issue here tonight that is for our disabled folks among us. And I believe it's the right thing to do to get this behind us and move on this article. So I would ask that everyone vote for not to go with further study. Thank you.
I'm not sure if Mr. Pasevich or Mr. Titlebaum was next. Mr. Pasevich? Am I right?
Eddie Pasevich, Precinct 1. We have a Conservation Commission. I have never, ever seen an amendment to the Wetlands Protective Act in Wareham that was not introduced by the Commission. Now, why do we have a commission if this isn't going through the Commission to start with, for them to review? I believe a member from the Commission already raised some questions and some issues. This is putting the horse before the cart. It should have went through the Conservation Commission, got their approval, any changes that they required, had a public meeting on it, for public input on it. There hasn't been any. And I agree, not that I'm against this article, because I think it's a good article, I'm against the procedures that took place. We have a Conservation Commission, and we should allow them to do their job. So I would urge you to vote for further study. Thank you.
Mr. Titlebaum?
It's working? Here we go. I asked the body to vote down the motion for further study. There's no need to do this. This body writes the laws of the town of Wareham, not the Conservation Commission, not the Planning Board, not the Board of Selectmen, not the Town Council. This body decides what goes into our bylaws. Ultimately, this body is responsible to understand what is being proposed, to review it, and to decide what makes sense. There is absolutely no requirement for a Conservation Commission hearing on any proposed bylaw unless they, in their own wisdom, want to write their own amendment to a bylaw and choose to hold a public hearing. They're not required to do so under law. This is not a planning article. This is simply a change to the bylaws. As to whether there's any need to further study this, look, this issue came, I believe, to the Conservation Commission back in June. We were informed of a legal decision in Plymouth Superior Court. Over a month went by, Nothing was forthcoming from the Board of Selectmen, or rather to the Board of Selectmen from the Conservation Commission. I believe somebody sent another request to the Conservation Commission to do something, and again, crickets chirping. It's the job of the Board of Selectmen in the town of Wareham to provide leadership. We waited a reasonable amount of time, about 2 months, for the Conservation Commission to act on this. They chose not to. The Board of Selectmen did choose. I haven't heard one remark about this article where there's any disagreement with the technicalities of it, that it's going to be hard to enforce or any of that. It's not going to be hard to enforce. You show up with your waiver, application, you show up with your statement of disability, and they vote to grant the access that any able-bodied person can do without having to go to Conservation Commission for permission to cross their land. So that's all this article seeks to do. I urge you to vote down the amendment. More than happy to work with the Conservation Commission going forward. Myself, I do land use law. We've got Attorney Bowen. We can help them out with this in the spring if they want to do a comprehensive review. Thank you.
Mrs. Bronk?
I rise in support of, of not putting this off for further study. I think it's totally unreasonable. I think it's socially and morally incorrect to deny people access through their own land. These are our people, for God's sakes. They live in this town. They pay taxes. They've worked with us. I don't even know who exactly the names of the people are, but it doesn't matter. If they're disabled, they need the right to get to the shoreline and enjoy it like every other individual. This is human rights, folks. Use common sense. Vote down this amendment and approve the order. Thank you.
On my right?
Okay. If we
Can you state your name, please?
Marie Strawn. Why do we need to vote on this tonight? They're not going out in their golf cart right now. We won't see anything until the spring. Why not wait for the Conservation Committee? The damage to the wetlands with a golf cart with 4 people in it may be more than we would want to see. And I'm not in favor of this.
On my left?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. I urge that we vote down the amendment for further study, and I do so because, as the previous speaker has said, there is time between now and April, and highly unlikely anybody will be going to the beach that often between now and April. And this, if nothing else, the approval of this article today puts a time limit on the Conservation Commission. And it requires them, if they decide that they want to change this, for any reason go against the Americans with Disabilities Act, they have to do it by April, or else this stays in effect. So I urge you to vote down further study and vote for the amendment, vote for the main article as it's presented. Thank you.
On my left?
Madam Moderator, Cliff Sylvia, Precinct 1, I move the question.
We have a motion to move the question. It's not debatable. It requires a 2/3 vote. I'll try for unanimous. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. The motion before you now comes on the amendment that was made by Mrs. Slavin for further study of Article 10. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor of further study, please say aye. All those opposed? The amendment fails. We now are back to the main motion, Article 10, as is presented before you. Is there anything further on the main motion as it's presented before you? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote on Article 10. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? It passes by a majority. Article 8, may I have a motion, please?
8.
Article
8.
Article 8.
Okay, I move that the town vote to amend the action taken under Article 5.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
I move that the town vote to amend the action taken under Article 5 of the April 23rd, 2007 special town meeting by rescinding the authority to borrow funds for so much of the sewer expansion project described in such article as has not yet been constructed.
Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
Good evening again, Madam Moderator. People are going to be sick of me before this meeting's over with. Article 8, the reasons for this are pretty self-explanatory, as it states in your FinCom handout. Basically, the Water Pollution Control Facility Director and the current Chairman of the Board of Selectmen have been involved in fairly substantive discussions with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection regarding sewer project priorities for the future. The DEP has suggested that the town could better protect the environment by focusing on other areas that they deem more environmentally sensitive and in greater need of groundwater protection from septic system waste discharges. In order to do this, the town's going to have to work with DEP to revise the comprehensive wastewater management agreement that currently binds and holds the town to sewer the areas that are named in that document. The first step in doing that is to remove the borrowing authority that would go towards finishing off the 2 neighborhoods that were named in the original article in 2007, which are Mayflower Ridge and the Agawam Beach area. The other thing that passing this would accomplish is to sort of clear the slate for the new sewer commissioners to come in, determine what projects they want to undertake, how they want to manage them, how they want to come to town meeting and present them and fund them, and to do a hell of a lot better job than we've done in the past. Thank you.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted, let's see, 5-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 7-4, 1 against, and 0 abstained. FinCom recommends favorable action on this article. Until such time that the sewer project may or may not go forward, the town is encumbered in its ability to borrow, while Article 5 of the April 23rd, 2007 special town meeting is carried on its books.
Gentleman on my right.
Eddie Pasevich, Precinct 1. I rise to amend this to further study.
Do I have a second? Have a second. Mr. Pasevich, at a point after you speak, can you put that in writing, please?
All set?
Go ahead.
There's a couple of issues here that you may or may not be aware of. First of all, I raised to change this to further study because the previous speaker is right. This should be handled by the sewer commissioners that are coming on board in April. Second of all, we, the ratepayers, are already paying for these 2 areas in the plans that were done for the engineering. Hundreds of thousands of dollars we are paying for right now. So if you take those 2 off the books, what happens to all the money we're paying for the engineering plans? Does it go down the drain? If you like that one, huh? We're currently paying, and we will keep on paying, for these engineering plans for these 2 areas. Now, does it make sense to throw that money away, or does it make sense for the sewer commissioners to take a long, hard look at this and to see maybe they might want to include these 2 areas in the upcoming change to the comprehensive wastewater management plan and maintain these 2 areas, since we've already paid and are paying for the engineering plans that are done. So anybody that's got a sewer is on sewer, we're paying for it. Do we want to throw it away? I urge you to go for further study. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Titlebaum?
Just in response to that, I will say this. I don't have any plans, and I don't think anybody else on the Board of Selectmen and current sewer commissioners have any plans to burn the existing plans. They're still going to be around regardless of the vote tonight. Secondly, in bringing this forward, we're moving in concert with the state authorities who have a far better understanding of what we need to do for sewering in this town. My thought is that a lot of mistakes were made years ago. I think we all know about those mistakes. This body's had to deal with some of those mistakes to its detriment at times. Now is the time to wipe the slate clean and start over so that on May 1st, when your new sewer commissioners come in, they can start with a clean slate. They can determine the priorities of this town. If the elected sewer commissioners on May 1st decide, hey, the first place we want to go is Agawam Beach and Mayflower Ridge, then they can knock themselves out. The plans will be waiting for them. If they decide to go in a different direction and use the money more sensibly, they can do that too. So that's all this does. And I would urge you to vote in favor of the article.
Gentleman on my left.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Dave Walton, District 3. If we're going to throw numbers around, I wish the people were more accurate. The EDUs are not paying. This is tax money for the entire town. The entire town, not just sewer. EDU is not paying for that. And $140,000 of that allocated funds was already used to fund one of the areas that's complete, that was taken from that put aside for those two areas. So if you're going to make comments about it, make it accurate. Furthermore, the area is considered excellent water from the Coalition to Save Buzzards Bay. Let's make that accurate also. So I think we ought to vote down this postponement and clean this up so money is available for areas of town that are in dire need of sewering, or at least a study to make sure that they're the ones that get to the top of the list to be done properly. Thank you.
Mrs. Cattouli?
Hello? Okay. I would not be in favor of further study, and I'm going to make this really simple so people can understand. When we talk about encumbrances to borrowing, every time we pass an article on this floor that plans a project or is in any way, we're going to establish money for something, that goes against the town's books, okay? And whether we actually buy that thing that we decided we were going to put that money up for, or go through with that project that we set that money aside for, that money stays on our books, and it lessens our ability to borrow against our assets, or whatever you want to call it. So it's a bad move to keep this particular article on our books, because it's lessening our ability to borrow in the future. That's the real simple way to put it. And I think that I'm in support with the Board of Selectmen, which is surprising, that I think it's time we cleaned it off, and if we are going to have sewer commissioners, let's clean the slate and let them start from fresh on what projects need to be done.
Selectman Slavin?
Just to further explain, way back when we did, phases 1, 2, and 3, there was a basic authorization, I believe, of about $20 million. We also had a special borrowing rate and a special borrowing program through the state. That program is over and done with. We didn't exercise the last portion, so therefore it's gone. It makes a lot more sense when you decide to go ahead and make the changes or make a modified comprehensive wastewater management plan to try and look for another grant, another bond, or another lower rate interest. Right now, what's left there doesn't exist. And the visit between Mr. Campino and myself to the DEP was to talk about keeping what's in place, but adding some other areas and changing the direction, which is what DEP is actually asking us to do. And this will allow us down the line, when the new sewer commissions come in, they'll be able to go ahead and work on that. We're just doing the groundwork for everybody ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pasevich, I will allow you to speak after everyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak, so I will come back to you. Gentleman on my right.
Scott Robertson, Precinct 3. Move the question, please.
We have a motion before us. It's not debatable. To move the question, it requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimous.
Point of order.
State your point.
I have still some time on the clock.
I understand that, but the question was moved and it takes precedence over everything else. I apologize for that, but that's how it happens. The motion before us is Mr. Pasevich's motion for further study. Requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
No. The motion now comes before you. The motion fails. The motion now comes before you as presented on the screen, Article 8. I move that the town vote to amend the action taken under Article 5 of the April 23rd special town meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. It passes with majority. Article 2. I have a motion.
Article 2. I move that the town vote to approve and transfer from free cash the sum of $180,000 for the fiscal year 2015 capital plan as printed in the Finance Committee book. The items in there are police service weapons and equipment, $20,000. Police portable radios, $45,000. To repair and upgrade streetlights, $50,000. And for the Minot Forest chairlift, ADA accessibility, $65,000 for a total of $180,000.
Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
No, thank you.
Yep. I'm all thanks, I guess. This item is going to use the town certified free cash. And just a simple explanation of free cash is that it's the remaining unrestricted funds from operations of the previous fiscal year, including unexpended free cash from the previous year, actual receipts in excess of revenue estimates shown on the tax recapitulation sheet, and unspent amounts in budget line items. Unpaid property taxes and certain deficits reduce the amount that can be certified as free cash. The calculation of free cash is based on the balance sheet as of June 30th, which is submitted by the community's auditor, accountant, or comptroller, accountant in our sake. Important, free cash is not available for appropriation until certified by the Director of Accounts. This is the first time in a while that we've had free cash certified for town meeting in October. I appreciate the work of the finance team. Tonight we'll take 4 articles up against the free cash, which is stabilization fund of $750,000, measure and list of $190,000, which is Article 20, Article 2 for $180,000, and the union articles for $78,500. At the end of the night, if all these articles were to pass, there would be a free cash balance of $264,383. Some of the free cash came from items of one-time items such as the sale of real estate, which we netted over $300,000 in from tax title properties, and also one-time fees, if you will, from projects such as the Walmart project and the Marriott Hotel project. So that's just a simple explanation so that everybody understands where it's coming from. To move on to Article 2, and thank you for the time.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen at 6 o'clock tonight, basically at that point re-voted on the article where we have no action to 3-0-0 favorable action.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Also, the Finance Committee reconsidered their prior vote of no action and took a vote of favorable action on this article, 7 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstained. We consider these expenses and use of free cash, a proper use of free cash, and one-time capital expenses.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 2? Seeing no one standing, I would now call for the vote. On Article 2, the motion before you, move that the town vote to approve and transfer for free cash the following sums that are shown to you on the screen. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 24. May I have a motion, please?
Okay, you talk, I don't want to talk.
I move that the town vote to transfer from the Community Preservation Historic Preservation Reserve Fund the sum of $98,000 to award a grant to the Wareham Historical Society to restore the old Methodist Meeting House located at 495 Main Street, Wareham, Mass., and to receive a preservation restriction.
I have a second. I have a second. I have to speak to the article.
The architectural and structural survey done in 2013 by Durland Van Voorhees Architects was used as the basis for this grant request. The old Methodist Meeting House is part of Wareham's history. The Methodist Episcopal Society erected this building in 1831 to 1832 on Tyhonet Road. It was moved to the current site in 1835 and enlarged. It was used as a general store and a laundromat before being donated in 1974 to the Wareham Historical Society by Joseph and Georgia Chamberlain. It is currently a meeting house used by the community for various events and programs.
I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 3-1-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted 8-4, 0, and 0. The Finance Committee recommends favorable action on this article. Through our review, we noted that the building is owned by the Wareham Historical Society and is used for various town functions, as well as being available for town residents for their own private functions. It is within the town's historical zone. Expenditures such as this meet the criteria as acceptable by the Massachusetts Community Preservation Statute for the use of funds collected by towns electing to participate in the community preservation.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 24? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote. The vote before you is that the town vote to transfer from Community Present Historic Preservation Reserve Fund the sum of $98,000 as is on the screen. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes by a majority. Article 7. Can I have a motion, please?
Article 7, I move that the town vote to transfer from 2014 certified retained earnings the sum of $750,000 to engineer the rehabilitation of the sewer system in the Swiss Beach area.
Do I have a second?
Second.
To speak to the article?
A yes vote on this article would authorize the town to transfer from retained earnings a sum of money to engineer the rehabilitation of the sewer system in the Swifts Beach area. We've received an estimate of approximately $18 to $20 million in costs. Clearly, we're not going to bring that in front of the body. That's why you do the engineering. Roughly 3 to 5% of the cost of a project is the engineering, where we came up with $750,000. It'll come from retained earnings, which is essentially the enterprise fund's free cash. The certified retained earnings are $3,141,144, of which, when removing $750,000, it would leave a balance of $2,391,144. Thank you.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 7-4-0 against and 0 abstained. The FinCom recommends favorable action on this article. The current system is 15 feet down, groundwater level is at 6 foot. Therefore, groundwater is infiltrating into the system. The pipes are cracked and breaking. The new system would be located 4 foot in the ground and would therefore eliminate problems of groundwater. This project needs to be engineered before the system can be replaced. The anticipated cost for the engineering is in the range of $750,000. That is what we're currently talking about. Please keep in mind that all this funding for this project would be through the Water Pollution Control Facility Enterprise Fund, not the General Town Fund.
Gentleman on my right.
Eddie Pasevich, Precinct 1. I'm a little bit confused, but maybe we can get through this. This article is only to engineer, get the engineering documentation for the Swifts Beach area, not to rehabilitate the system.
To answer the question.
Yes, that is correct. The issue with the Swifts Beach area...
Mr. Slavin, you need to bring it right up close.
I've got it close. It's not working.
Don't tap the mic. Don't tap the mic. It's working. You
It's
just need to get closer.
The guy in the booth needs to remember who's talking, that's all.
Not me, anyways. I'll start again. The Swifts Beach area is one of the oldest systems, and unfortunately, we're getting what they call I&I, which is getting a tremendous amount of water infiltration, somewhere in the range of 100,000 to 200,000 gallons a day. We're basically treating clean water from the ocean. The pipes are breaking. There's leakage through there. We have the same problem with us that we're going to have to face as well. If you look at the description, we're changing this, how we've done the system.
Mr. Slavin, the question was, is this only for engineering?
This is an engineering and design. This is not a study. This is the actual pieces to have a project finished down the line.
Thank you.
One other point of information then, will you come forward to the town meeting for the $18 to $20 million bill to do this?
To answer the question?
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Thank you.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 7? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote. It requires a majority vote. The motion before you is that the town vote to transfer from 2014 certified retained earnings the sum of $750,000. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 25. May I have a motion?
I move that the town vote to transfer from the Community Preservation Affordable Housing Reserve the sum of $70,000 for a grant to the Wareham Housing Authority to create one additional housing unit, Unit 51, Building 5, at Agawam Village, located at 57 Sandwich Road, Wareham, Mass, for affordable public housing.
Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
The Wareham Housing Authority has a significant wait list of residents in need of housing. Each new unit contributes to reducing that need. By rehabilitating Unit 51, this would also bring in additional revenue. The office, which currently occupies Unit 51, will move to the community building at no additional expense. It is hoped that construction can be completed in the spring of 2015.
Can I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 5-0-0.
Can I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 8-4-0 against and 0 abstained. We recommend favorable action on this article. It would reestablish another much-needed rental unit at this location for a resident in need of immediate housing. It's just the right thing to do. And an acceptable use of CPA funding under the criteria of affordable housing.
No? Okay, I thought you were coming down to speak to the article. Seeing no one standing to speak to Article 25, I will now call for the motion, call for the vote. Motion before you is to move that the town vote to
Madam
transfer.
Moderator?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
That's because I
On
wasn't
my
here.
left?
It just
You
appeared.
just appeared. It's Halloween. Those things happen.
Boo. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. I just have a question. If this is to, if these funds are to repair, I guess, a particular unit in Building 5, why doesn't the Housing Authority pay for that?
To answer the question, I believe the gentleman behind you.
Good evening, Bob Powell, latest chairman of the Housing Authority. This is not to repair a unit. Many years ago, for some reason or another, when Agawam Village was built, there was 40 units of housing. Somewhere along the line, this unit was vacated and converted into an office. The
Mr.
purpose of-
Powell, to answer his question, and I believe his question was, why is not the Housing Authority paying for this?
The Housing Authority doesn't have the funds for this. This was done inappropriately. The purpose of the Community Preservation Act is to provide funds to create an additional housing in the town, and that's what this article is for, creating an additional housing unit.
Thank you. Now, do you wish to speak to the article itself? No? Am I right?
Tom Bickey, Precinct 3. The concern that I have with adding another unit is that if the Housing Authority doesn't have sufficient funds to maintain the structures that they have right now, how are they going to add an additional unit and then maintain it and the 50 other units that are there that apparently don't have enough money to be repaired?
To answer the question only?
There is no 50 units. There's 39 units there now occupied. There were 40 units, and one unit was taken offline, and when you take a unit offline, you lose revenue. The revenue from the residents plus the subsidy for the shortfall in the difference between income and expense is a subsidy from the state to operate those 40 units of housing. So that's how the units would be continued to be maintained.
Please come to the microphone. And please direct your question to the body through the moderator.
Yes, I guess. Tom Bickey, Precinct 3. The question I have is do they have sufficient funds to maintain the property appropriately right now without an additional property added to it?
To answer the question?
A yes or no, I guess, would be sufficient.
We have adequate funds to maintain the property, and we will have adequate funds to maintain the property when an additional unit is added.
Thank you. Selectman Holmes?
Madam Moderator, I'd like to ask a question through you to Town Council. As we spoke here at the last town meeting over this issue with Housing Authority using money that's been put aside for, and they can only use it for specific reasons. I didn't realize that one of the reasons was to build a brand new unit. So if we could clarify that through Town Council, if that's one of the uses for that money.
To answer the question?
myself and others would appreciate it.
Madam Moderator, through you to the previous speaker and to the meeting, one of the permissible uses of CPA funding is to create affordable housing. The law was amended fairly recently to also allow CPA funds to be used for rehabilitation of certain structural elements of housing.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator.
I don't think he answered my question.
Madam
Do you
Moderator.
want
He said that there was...
just a second, Mr. Powell-Latis.
He said that there was money to rehab a unit, but it seems the question on this article is to build a new unit, not to rehab an old unit.
Madam Moderator.
Ladies and gentlemen, please. Mr. Holmes has asked a question. We will allow town council to answer it.
Madam Moderator, through you to the previous speaker and to the meeting, the CPA law allows the use of CPA funds to create affordable housing.
Does that
Madam
answer your
Moderator.
question? Does that answer your question, Mr. Holmes?
Speak, but I'll go along with Mr. Bowen. Thank you, Mr. Bowen.
Okay. Mr.
Madam-
Powell-Latis, do you wish to speak to the article?
Just for clarification of the previous question.
All right.
We are
my
not,
question
we
was
are not,
answered, Madam
we are not
Mr. Powell-Latis, if you're responding to Mr. Holmes, I believe town council has answered his question.
He didn't. Could I clarify that answer?
Mr. Holmes, would you like Mr. Powell-Latis to answer your
If he
question?
wants to open the bag of worms, Madam Moderator, let him go right ahead.
Mr. Powell-Latis, to answer Mr. Holmes's question.
We are not adding to the existing building. We are converting the office that's on Building 5 into an affordable housing unit. So that's not what the question, not as implied by the question.
Thank you, Mr. Powell-Latis. Ms. Cattouli?
I don't know. I guess I want to open up a bag of worms, but that's okay. The clarification is, I was actually there. It used to be a housing unit. It was converted into an office. Now they would like to convert it back to a housing unit, and therefore it qualifies under CPA as adding a housing unit.
Thank you. Selectman Titlebaum?
Yes, I was going to mention that as well. The bottom line is the housing monies that are set aside, and we have to set aside 10% every year at minimum to go into the affordable housing portion of the Community Preservation Fund, can be used to rehabilitate a unit that's fallen into disrepair and non-use, or build something from scratch. There is absolutely no distinction there to be made, just for the body's knowledge going forward.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 25? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote. The vote before you is moved that the town vote to transfer from Community Preservation Affordable Housing the sum of $70,000. Requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 27, may I have a motion, please?
You can have this one.
Article 27, Parker Mills Dam Restoration. I move that $1 million is appropriated to pay the costs of dam repairs at Parker Mills Pond and all other costs incidental or related thereto. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow $1 million under General Law C-44B or any other enabling authority, that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to contract for and expend any federal or state aid available for the project, provided...
Mr. Hurd, just one second. I don't mean to interrupt you. Ladies and gentlemen that are using the back exit, please do not go out the back exit. Please exit to my left, and I apologize for interrupting you, but we can't allow the use of the rear exits. Go ahead, Mr. Hurd.
Thank you. I'll continue. Provided that the amount of the authorized borrowing shall be reduced by the amount of such aid received prior to the issuance of bonds or notes under this vote, and that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project.
Do I have a second? To speak to this article?
The Parker Mills Pond Dam is classified as a high hazard potential Class 1 dam. This classification comes from the Office of the Dam Safety at the Department of Conservation and Recreation, which is from the state. This classification means that its failure will likely impact one or more of the following: loss of life, serious damage to homes, industrial or commercial facilities, important public utilities, main highways or railroads. The state has awarded $165,000 for this project in a pure grant. Thank you.
Can I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action, 5-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted 6 favorable, 1 against, and 0 abstained. The Finance Committee recommends favorable action on this article. During our review, we received reports from 5 Finance Committee members who made an on-site visit to the Elm Street closure. The Parker Mills Dam underlies the road with its failing bridge culverts and other weakening issues. The bridge is not safe, and the town must repair the bridge, the road, and the dam. The vote was taken after an extensive discussion concerning a very difficult and complex situation and represents the Finance Committee's belief that this is the best option available for the town at this moment. We were presented with a grant that would be made for $165,000 and an $835,000 2% interest loan from the state under the Community Preservation Act would go to the committee for the repairs to be made right now. If the vote if it has to be voted and accepted at this particular time, otherwise those funds will likely disappear. The Town Stabilization Fund has not been adequately funded at this time to cover this situation. At the time the repairs are made, 2 other culverts that move water into the Tremont Naval Building will be removed. The water flow, per the 2008 consultant site assessment, is a major drawback to any future use by anybody of that particular site.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to give you a reminder, if you feel that you do have to get up and leave or you need to visit the restrooms, please exit on this side onto my left. Do not go out through the back. Do not go out through the right-hand side. That's to preserve the integrity of this meeting. And in the event there is an emergency that we all have to leave, if we all have to leave, you may use the rear door or the side doors, but when you come back, you have to come back in this door. Everyone needs to come back in that door. And I didn't say that at the beginning. I apologize, but I just want you to make note of that. Mr. Pasevich.
Eddie Pasevich, Precinct 1. A point of information, who owns the dam?
To answer the question,
The question is a little difficult. We know that the town of Wareham owns a portion of the dam. We know that most likely AD Makepeace does. We also think that the road itself, Elm Street, was a county road, and we've been doing due diligence for the last 2.5 months with an attorney as well, trying to find out whether the county ever actually turned the road over to the town of Wareham. So we're trying to put something in place which, if we don't accept it, we lose the $165,000, and then we're out that money no matter what. The state will not let us slide on this particular issue.
I move to amend this article to further study.
to speak to your amendment.
First of all, this article says that we want to borrow $835,000 to fix a dam that nobody knows who owns. And if it is jointly owned with AD Makepeace and us, the town, where is the portion that AD Makepeace is paying to fix this dam? Okay? These questions should be answered before we authorize any type of loan or $835,000 that we have to pay back. Secondly, if the town owns the dam or a portion of the dam, according to Chapter 253, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws, the town is entitled to collect the water fees for those cranberry owners that are using the water to irrigate They're bogs. No money has been collected in the last 10, 15, 17 years. To my understanding, the last time this money was collected was during the administration of Mr. Murphy, the town administrator. Subsequent discussions broke down, and the Cranberry owners refused to pay the money that they were required to pay. So why are we borrowing this money when we don't know who's owning it? Second of all, we should be splitting the cost. Third of all, where's the money that the cranberry growers owe us for taking that money, taking the water from behind the dam? The law says they're supposed to pay us. I urge further study on this until these questions could be answered, okay? Or if you don't want to go for further study and you want to make sure you're saving all of the money, that no money be expended until these questions are answered.
So, Mr. Pasevich, just so that we're clear, your motion that you're putting before this body is for further study?
That's correct at this point.
Thank you. To speak to Mr. Pasevich's... I'm sorry, do we have a second? We have a second. Mr. Titlebaum?
Yes, I urge the body to vote down any further study of this. We've been told by the State Department of Conservation and Recreation that if we want to have access to this money, not just the $835,000 in low-interest loan at 2%, but also the $165,000 cash grant, we need to vote it now and get our application in the spring. The Board of Selectmen, working with Town Council, and also working with a specialized title attorney, one of the best in the state, we're currently reviewing the ownership issues in the dam. We don't have an answer for you at this meeting, and frankly, where it's a legal matter, we're not going to have a public answer for you until we know what it is. But I can tell you this, it's important that when the state comes to us, when we apply for state funds, and the state comes through with some money for us, it's important not to spurn that money, because the next time you go for a grant, they're going to laugh at you. This is what happens. If it's on the table, you take it. Now, does this mean that you would be guaranteed, if you vote for this, to spend $1 million tonight? The $165,000 in the grant and borrowing of $835,000? No. Again, this is all contingent upon the title search. But a failure to vote positively on this article or to further study it into the spring means we lose that $165,000. I don't know about you folks, but I don't think we're flush enough to throw away $165,000.
Mr. Camerano?
Madam Moderator, through you, I have a question. I understand there's problems with the title and the water and everything, but can someone answer if we go ahead and get this money because there's a time limit on receiving it, is there a time limit on spending it? No. Does it have to be used by a certain time if we receive it from the state? That's my question.
To answer the question?
No, I don't believe there's any time limit on spending it. There is, however, a time limit by which we need to apply for it. And the state will not recognize our application for the grant and the borrowing unless town meeting vote for it. Understand that all the state has done to this point is say, you are an eligible community. We selected you among dozens of communities that applied. There were 15 that were selected to be eligible to apply for these funds. But no application will be granted without a prior borrowing authorization. And that's how we've been told to do it by the state.
Thank you. On my left?
We can't afford to throw away that kind of money, and we're getting the opportunity to get free money from the state, and as Mr. Titlebaum has said, we're not in a position not to accept free money. We're in a position to accept a low-interest loan and to emphasize the obvious. This is a safety issue. It's a public health issue. It's a public safety issue. So I strongly urge this body to vote down the amendment and to support Article 27. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman on my right?
Johannes Wagner, 72 Paper Mill Road. I worked with an engineering company that inspected this dam about 10 years ago. The water is leaking through the walls of the Tremont nail factory. Part of the dam is part of the foundation of the nail factory. A high hazard dam means that there will be loss of life. Now, this dam has been rated very, very poorly for at least 12 to 14 years. Elm Street is part of it, regardless of who owns it and money. I can tell you quite honestly that I would be concerned about the loss of life if that dam ever went. The daycare center, the downtown area, absolutely is in danger. A high hazard dam, category 1, is nothing to be concerned about money. This thing has been in terrible shape for 12 to 15 years, if not longer. And I urge you not to restudy this, but to get something done. Thank you.
I reiterate the former speaker's thoughts 100%. And trust me, the Finance Committee looked at this very, very carefully. And you're not gonna find a tighter bunch of guys and ladies with the dollar than some of these guys. And they were the ones that all went tromping through it. We're between a rock and a hard place, ladies and gentlemen. We have to look out for the health and welfare of all of our residents, and this is a safety issue. Nothing more, nothing less. We can't afford to lose one life because we were negligent on this dam.
Is there anything further to be said on Mr. Pacevich's amendment? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote on the amendment for further study. All those in favor of further study, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No. No.
It fails by a majority. The main motion is now before you.
Madam Moderator,
Am I right?
I rise to amend the current article. To add to the article, no money shall be expended until the title is cleared, appropriate negotiations take place on the correction of the dam, and money is collected for water fees.
Do you have that in writing, Mr. Pasevich?
I do, but I need the form I could transfer.
Okay, I want it completely filled out, not just 2 words. I need those exact words on this, please.
Yeah.
To speak to your amendment?
I am in favor of getting the dam fixed, but I'm also in favor of saving the town as much money as possible, okay? What I'm saying here is we can go get the money, we can get the $1 million loan, but we're not going to spend any of that money until, one, the title is cleared up, and if both the town and the Cranberry Goer own the dam, then fine. We can negotiate on what percentage each of the 2 owners are going to pay to correct and fix the dam. And thirdly, the Cranberry Goers are going to have to reimburse the town for the money they owe for the water they've been using. That's all that this is saying, okay? We get the money, we hold the money until this is squared away. Thank you.
Selectman Titlebaum to speak to the amendment.
Yes, I urge the body to defeat this second amendment also. With regard to the notion that anybody owes the town any money for water use, one of the things that has turned up in our title search that I can disclose is that one of the cranberry growers to which the previous speaker alluded to as owing fees to the town does in fact have riparian rights, which means water rights in that area. To vote on a presumption that somebody owes you some money when there's no proof that they actually do makes no sense whatsoever. Further, you can trust this Board of Selectmen is very interested to save your money, to resolve the title issues in the most favorable manner to the town. I was actually the one who insisted that we not accept any ownership interest in the dam until we hired a title professional. Now, I can go do title searches, Attorney Bowen can go do title searches, but I wanted to get somebody who's an expert in the field to do this. We spent a fair amount of money to do this. When that report comes into the Board of Selectmen. We will discuss it, most likely in executive session, to determine what to do next. We don't need to have our feet held to the fire to do what we're already doing.
What the amendment is asking us to do, ladies and gentlemen, is wait till it rains until we build an ark. Come on. Can we please ask our town attorney what he might think on this subject? I'm sure he's been very involved in it, and I mean, he's the guy we pay for the answers.
Do you have a specific question?
Madam Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, I don't think anybody has ever actually asked me what I thought. They usually just ask me what's the law, and what I think and what the law says are often two different things. But what I think is this. The town, there are two principal owners of this property. The town is one of them. The allocation of ownership will be subject to the outcome of the title search and negotiation. We've already had negotiations on this point. I don't think I'm giving away any state secrets by saying that our opinion of what our ownership percentage is differs considerably from that of the other party. This will be the subject of negotiations. We are negotiating, and as I understand this article, it's simply to get our foot on the ladder of state money and nothing more. You know, I've been out to the Tremont Nail, I've been across the dam, I've seen the water coming through the foundation into Tremont Nail. I've walked the entire property, I've looked at the deeds, I've looked at the engineering plans that we've surveyed. We have some responsibility here, but we're not going to pay a penny more than that for which we're responsible.
Mrs. Cattouli?
I just knew this dam situation was going to be fun. I actually put on my boots and had a nice long walk over to see the dam. And when we talk about ownership, it's really a very sticky situation. And for us to put it off until we absolutely define that, I don't know whether we ever absolutely define that. And I can say that simply by the fact that in some places the dam is spread so much that what we may own actually is on somebody else's property. So I think that those that are involved are reasonable and willing to negotiate and do what's best for the town. I don't want any, you know, as the former speaker said, putting their feet to the fire situation to ruffle further feathers in what's been a really open and honest negotiation. All parties have pretty much said that they want to come to the table and say, do the right thing. Whatever needs to be accomplished to make that dam safe. There's also an issue of that I didn't know that municipal maintenance showed me that there's a water sluiceway that was part of the natural terrain there that was meant to overflow in the event of storms. And this part of this dam repair will correct that situation because we've been very, very neglectful in that whole area of allowing the trees and the foliage and all that to grow up and really move and change the water in a direction it wasn't supposed to go. So I would not support a further amendment to delay this in any way.
Thank you. Not sure. Mr. Camerano?
I don't know if this is the right time for this question, but through you, Madam Moderator, to Mr. Bowen. Does water rights, someone who has water rights to the dam, is that water rights the same as ownership or part ownership, or can they have water rights without ownership of the dam? Because the water rights is kind of a sticky situation with me, someone getting something for nothing. And I know that there's a lot of people who do benefit from that water. So if they have water rights, can we hold them responsible for part of the payment if there really aren't ownership, or is one the same as the other? That's my question. Thank you.
To answer the question.
Madam Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, Dominic, it's going to sound like I'm going to sidestep your question, and I don't mean to. What we obviously would like to do would be to cast our net as widely as possible to bring in as many potential, I hate this word, stakeholders, into the negotiation. So I think that probably gets at what you're asking.
Gentleman on my right.
Madam Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, Howard Smith, Precinct 4. I basically have two questions regarding this article or this issue. I'm assuming, and I know what they say about assuming, we keep using the word dam, referring to the dam. My first question is, does this project involve reconstructing the bridge that's there now? It's my understanding that the bridge is part of the problem because that has collapsed. So I'm assuming that this is part of the project to reconstruct the bridge.
To answer the question.
Madam Moderator, to get a clean answer, I would ask that Mr. Menard, the Director of Municipal Maintenance, answer it, since he's heavily involved in what's going to happen.
Mr. Menard, to answer the question, please.
Thank you.
Dave Menard, Municipal Maintenance, and the answer is yes. Both culverts will be replaced in the reconstruction process.
Thank you.
My second question is, being in business and knowing about liability and what you own and so forth, if the town does own a portion of this dam and this dam does rupture, we have 4 dwellings downstream. We have a child care center with multiple children. If this dam breaks, who assumes the liability for these problems and the damages? Is there a responsibility of the town?
Don't answer.
I know, dams.
Madam Moderator, through to the previous speaker, should such a tragic occurrence come to pass, the jury would determine who was responsible.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Langdon.
Madam Moderator, thank you. Let me just answer that last question, because it's the old story about if there's one lawyer in town, he's broke. If there are two, they're both rich. And you know that we can't get into that at all. I think that the gentleman asked the right question. I will have to admit that many of us on the Finance Committee were very pessimistic about this and negative when we first heard about it, until we went there and found out the real issue is the culvert. It's the road, and it's the road that the town owns, or we believe that we certainly own it. Somebody gave it to us along the way. And when the state tells you that your road is doing the rumba when people go over it, it's not safe. And that really is what drove us to say we are between a rock and a hard place. We've got to get this thing fixed. There's money on the table. The money needs to be, get an indication from the town that they're willing to use the money to fix it. There's still negotiation. There's still other things that have to go on. But the real issue with this article is the road needs to be fixed. The dam will be a part of that. But the road needs to be fixed. The money's there. We've got some road funds, too, that are coming in that we haven't talked about that are also part of this. That's the reason why the Finance Committee urges the acceptance of this particular article, because it basically is our best shot. And as one of our fellow members said, we are between a rock and a hard place, and this is about the best way out right now.
Is there anything further to be said on Mr. Pasevich's motion, his amendment? Seeing no one standing, the vote will now come on the amendment, which is all of the language that you see on the screen and adding no money shall be expended until title is cleared, appropriate negotiations take place on construction of the dam, and money is collected for water fees. That is the motion before you, as Mr. Pacevich's amendment requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The amendment fails by a majority. We're now back to the original main motion. Is there anything further to be said on Article 27? I see no one standing, therefore the vote will come on the main motion. The main motion, because it includes borrowing, does require a 2/3 vote. I am going to try for a unanimous. All those in favor of Article 27, as it appears before you on the screen, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. It passes by a 2/3 non-counted vote. Article 5. I have a motion.
No, they just leave it.
There's a lot of reading. Motion.
Article 5.
I move to transfer from free cash the sum of $252.51 to approve a bill from a prior year.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Is there anything that be said on Article 5? Seeing no one standing, I am going to call for a vote. An unpaid bill from a prior year requires a 9/10 vote. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor of Article 5 to transfer from free cash to pay a prior year bill, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It's unanimous. Article 4.
Article 4, I move that the town vote to transfer $80,000 from the receipts reserved for appropriation onset parking fund to be used for expenses related to parking kiosk program, with such funds to be distributed by approval of the town administrator.
To speak to the article.
This article seeks to fund the enforcement and operations of the parking kiosk program, which includes purchasing new kiosks, salary for staff associated with the program, such as parking enforcement officials, equipment maintenance and monitoring costs, area maintenance such as parking lots, sidewalks, crosswalks, and tourism, and signage. Thank you.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Voted favorable action, 3-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee voted favorable action, 8-4, 0 against, and 0 abstained. Finance Committee is in support of this article to ensure that the parking kiosk program maintains its stable business endeavor for the town.
To speak to the article on my right.
In Precinct 3, sorry. Question on the resources needed to implement the program. Would it also include the resources to check the other parking sites in towns such as Little Harbor or Tempest Knob for adherence to their stickers?
No.
Thank you.
On my right.
Marie Strawn, Precinct 1. This town is using Onset as a cash cow. All the money comes to Wareham. Onset gets zero. We don't get any trash barrels, we don't get beach cleanup. I think Onset deserves some of this money that's coming in from the parking fees. Thank you.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 4? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for the vote on Article 4. The vote before you is to transfer $80,000 from the receipts reserved for appropriation onto parking fund to be used for expenses. As the motion is before you, it requires majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes by majority. Article 17.
That was the one that was... That's already...
Right. This is the one, and this is the one that I had egg on my face about. Article 17, initially, it was going to go into the consent agenda because it would have a motion for indefinite postponement, and I gave you the wrong information, so it remains in the lottery, and we do have to take it up, so I would accept a motion for indefinite postponement.
I will move indefinite postponement on Article 17.
Second.
I guess we don't need to speak to the article because we know that it was in the consent agenda. So I think we all have a clear understanding, and I don't think we need a vote of, or to hear the votes unless the Finance Committee wishes to give its recommendation, no. So I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of indefinite postponement on Article 17, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes unanimously. Article 22.
I move that the town vote to increase the fiscal year 14 reserves to reflect the additional community preservation funds received state match as follows. 1, historic preservation, $26,000. Second, open space, $26,000. Third, affordable housing, $26,000, for a total of $78,000 from the unallocated fund balance.
We have a second. To speak to the article.
The FY14 estimated community preservation account revenue at the spring 2014 town meeting was $754,000. The actual FY14 community preservation account revenue is $1,014,412. Chapter 139, Sections 69 through 83 of the Acts of 2012, an act to sustain community preservation, added an additional $25 million for the statewide Community Preservation Act Trust Fund in FY13. Expanded flexibility for recreational projects, added an optional $100,000 exemption for commercial and industrial property, and made numerous other technical and clarifying amendments.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Unfavorable. Sorry. Yeah, Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 5-0-0.
May I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 8-4, 0 against, and 0 abstained. We are in support of this article in consideration of the state's increased revenue to the community preservation funds. Allocating these specific fund balances is a feasible option.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 22? Seeing no one standing, I'll call for the vote. The vote before you is that the town vote to increase the FY14 reserves. This requires a majority vote. The motion is before you on the screen. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 21, may I have a motion, please?
Article 21. I move that the town vote to petition for special legislation amending Section 2 of Chapter 82 of the Acts of 2008 to allow for the annual deposit of 25% of the proceeds of the Wareham Parking Meter Fund into the Community Events Fund and 20% of the excise collected under Section 3A of the General Laws, Chapter 68G, also known as the Hotel and Motel Tax, as of the effective date of this Act and for the subsequent fiscal years, but in no event earlier than July 1st, 2015. And further, in no event shall the amount in aggregate in the Community Events Fund for any fiscal year exceed $60,000.
Thank you. To speak to the motion?
The Community Events Committee, established through the state legislature in 2007, is a small group of volunteers that serve as the conduit for distributing the earmarked funds to the town's nonprofit organizations and for ensuring that they follow the regulations and guidelines set forth in conducting their advertising and promotional venues. In its simplest form, the state regulations require that monies be spent for advertising and promoting events to attract tourism or for enhancements that would attract more out-of-area visitors. The benefits are that the tourists would visit the town of Wareham, generate more revenue for the local businesses, which in turn would enhance tax revenues for supporting town services and expenses. The original 2007 town meeting warrant article and subsequent state legislation provided community events funding from the parking meter fund and the hotel motel tax receipts for only one fiscal year. This article, if passed by town meeting and enacted into law by the state legislature, would provide the community events fund with annual funding from these sources.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 2-3-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee voted favorable action 7 for, 1 against, and 0 abstained. The FinCom supports this article. The percentages from the revenue collected as well as the annual aggregate maximum cap are financially reasonable.
To speak to the article on my left?
Susan Ricky Sohn, I'm chairman of Community Events, and as was stated before, the Community Events Committee has been successful since 2007. Regretfully, because of an oversight in how the program was written, it will end this year. Article 21 proposes to reinstate and continue this winning formula for attracting tourism. This committee will operate under strict guidelines as it has in the past for the distribution of said advertising dollars. If Article 21 fails, some of the non-profit organizations may not be able to continue and some events will become a memory. Your support of Article 21 will ensure that the events described above will, what we enjoy and continue to be supported by tourism dollars.
Thank you. On my right?
Madam Moderator, Herb Williams, Precinct 1. This is just a point of order. In our booklets, it says January 1st, 2015. On the board there, it says July 1st, 2015. Which is correct?
It is actually what is before you on the screen, which is the beginning of the fiscal year. The date in the book was a Scribner error.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything further to be said on Article 21? Selectman Titlebaum?
Yes, I was one of the 3 unfavorable votes on this. My concern was not the existence of the committee itself, nor was it the idea that they had to go back to the legislature and correct the defect from 2007 when they were only voted the opportunity to, I guess you would say, have at 1 year's worth of taxes. My concern is that, notwithstanding that I've been working with the chairman of community events for over a year now, I'm still finding it very difficult to get a sum certain as to what they spend every single year. I've tried to work through the town accountant, the town administrator, and my best estimate as to what they have actually spent is somewhere between $40,000 and $48,000. You know, in this fiscal climate where we're not replacing workers, where our citizens have told us in quite strong language, no more taxes, I just have a difficult time supporting up to $60,000 for this committee because A, I don't believe they've ever spent up to that level, and B, I don't believe that they can show that they spent over $50,000. So I would move to amend Article 21 to set the limit at the end. No event shall the amount in the aggregate in the Community Events Fund for any fiscal year exceed $45,000.
Have amendment before us to change the dollar amount to, did you say 45,000? To speak to Mr. Titlebaum's amendment. Am I right? To speak to Mr. Titlebaum's amendment.
No, I'm sorry. I was up to speak to the original article.
Is there anybody that wishes to speak to Mr. Titlebaum's amendment? Seeing no, Mr. Camerano?
Yes, Madam Moderator, through you. Can community events give us an answer of what they have spent the last 2 years?
To answer Mr. Camerato's question? The question is what has been spent in prior year?
I can go back to 2010. What was spent and what was requested and what was spent.
We just need what was spent.
Okay. 42,252. 2011, 41,230. 2012, 64,670. 2013, 42,011. And 2014, 30,410. And the reason why that was so low is because we didn't have any money in the budget. We had requests up to 56,000 for last year, but we were only able to award 30,000 for the events because we didn't have the money.
You all set? Is there anyone that wishes to speak any further? Mr. Camerado, are you all set, or
I'm all set,
you're all set?
thank you, Madam Moderator.
Through
Mr.
you,
Titlebaum?
Madam Moderator, just a question to the Chairman of Community Events. Was the 2012 figure, did that also include the $21,000 that went for the kiosks?
Yes, that was the 21,000 for the kiosks.
Great,
That was
thank you. And thank you for the kiosks.
Is there anything further to be said on the amendment to Article 21, which changes the amount of money and reduces it to $45,000? Seeing no one, your vote will now come on the amendment. As is before you on the screen, it requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take a count. That was kind of close. The chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please raise your cards. In the front.
21, 2-1.
On my right.
28.
28, 28. In the center.
66,
3566.
On my left.
3535.
All those opposed to the amendment, please raise your cards. In the front,
16.
on my right,
4.
that was 4.
Yes.
In the center,
30.
3030, and on my left,
21.
there are 150 votes in the affirmative, 71 votes in the negative. The amendment passes. So we now will take a vote, or we now will have a discussion. The amendment becomes the main motion with a dollar amount of $45,000. Mr. Pasevich?
Eddie Pasevich, Precinct 1. This is more in the line of a question. We have the Community Events Committee, which is dealing with tourism, and we have a new committee that was established, the Beach and Tourism Committee. The question, why do we have 2 committees that are dealing with tourism? And do we need 2, or should they all be combined into 1?
To answer the question, if someone chooses to. Selectman?
Just, I don't know that it has any bearing on this vote. The Community Events Committee was set up to sponsor, quote, community events, unquote. These are one-time events in Onset typically. There are some in Wareham as well. I know that they sponsored, or at least contributed money towards some of the events for the 2014 celebration. There's a distinct difference between that and the promotion of a year-round tourism base in the town of Wareham, which includes getting people here not just to go to the events, but to go to the beaches, to look at Wareham as a place to kayak, to look at a place where Wareham has a lot of set-aside land for walking trails and so on and so forth. So I understand your question, but the mission of the 2 committees is quite dissimilar.
Thank you.
On my left,
Eleanor Martin, Precinct 4, Onset Bay Association. I'd just like to say a few words about this article. The passing of this article is paramount to the survival of all tourism in Wareham. The funds from this committee enable nonprofit groups to present community events throughout the year to our town. Without these events, small businesses would suffer and survival impossible. I think that's kind of something that you're missing about what this money that we get from the community CEC does. It helps the small businesses. We put on events, and yes, you think, well, why do we need all these events? Because it does bring people in. And it isn't just for the events, it's to bring them in and to show them what a beautiful area we have so that they will come back. We have all kinds of things going on through the summer. We have kayak poker runs, we have things on the beach. It isn't just for fancy one-day events, it's to bring people in. And also, there's such a small window of time for these small businesses to make their living. They have to depend on us bringing people in. And without the money that we get from the community events to advertise, we can't just advertise in the local papers. We have to advertise and get it out throughout the state, and that costs money, and that's what they give us the money to do. And it's to bring people into the area to help the Onset and Wareham areas survive. These small businesses are struggling. They're hanging on by a string. Yes, the town says they're hanging on by a string, but it's a
30
catch-22. Without the small businesses, the town's going to turn back to a ghost town like it was before, and nobody wants that. It's not good for the economy, it's not good for crime, and it's not good for the town. We need to have this money funded so that we can keep bringing people into town. I urge everyone to support this article. Thank you.
Am I right?
Marie Strawn, Precinct 1. Well, they do such a good job of promoting Onset that nobody can park.
Mrs. Strong, can you just stick to the merits of the article that's before us, please?
The whole accountability of this group is very questionable. They're going through a lot of money that would pay a library employee, that would pay a special ed teacher. They're just taking money out of our employees' pockets, and they cause Onset business is terrible. All the small businesses are beginning to fold because people couldn't park. It doesn't work.
Thank you. Gentleman on my left.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. First of all, I want to start out by saying I support the community events. What I don't like about this particular article is that it essentially establishes earmarks, and the earmarks are 25% of the parking meter fund and 20% of the hotel motel tax, up to $45,000. I'd prefer that the Community Events Committee compete for town funds like any other department would compete for town funds, especially in this time of fiscal austerity. You know, by way of example, through the town budget process, rather than spending $45,000 on community events and advertising, maybe $40,000 on that and $5,000 to clean up Onset Beach. So to that extent, what I'd like to do is offer an amendment or maybe it's not even an amendment, maybe we just vote this down, so that the committee submit a budget to the town administrator like other departments do, and that budget be acted on by this body on an annual basis. Does that require an amendment, or does that require just voting this down?
That's entirely your choice.
I don't know what the implication of voting no on this is.
The implication of voting no would mean they would have no money for community events.
And there's no reason why they couldn't go through the budget process? Is there anything to prevent them from submitting a budget?
To answer Mr. Haney's question.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Through you to the previous speaker. If this article were not approved, it would mean that there would not be a special act that would allow the earmark of money out of the tax revenue for purposes of the committee. The alternative would be for community events to approach the town administrator and petition for a line item in his annual budget request at town meeting, and for town meeting to take up that budget request as it does with other departments.
Okay, so they can submit a budget in the whatever January timeframe, just like other department heads, and this body can act upon that budget if we vote no on this article?
Yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd urge you to vote no on this article, and that the Community Events Committee submit a budget on an annual basis to the town administrator, and that we can act on it as a body annually. Thank you.
Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I don't understand what that was from the previous speaker, but I would stand up and urge you to vote no on that recommendation. The Community Events Committee was founded for a specific reason, and that was to boost and assist tourism in the town of Wareham so that we could increase parking fees and so that we could cause problems of parking, ma'am. That's exactly the point. so that we can bring revenue into our town and bring people into our villages and help our small businesses grow. The Community Events Committee is not a town department that submits money through a town budget process. This committee was established to use money that became available not from the town coffers through a budget process, but through using money from parking and meals and revenue. And I think even there was some hotel tax in there when we first started this. So the idea of a community board submitting money through the town administrator seems to me to be a bit ridiculous. This money is earmarked. Mr. Titlebaum was successful in lowering the money. Now, if they don't get the money in parking and they don't get enough money through these other taxes to get the 45, they don't get any money. So they can only get money up to a certain point. Please reject this. This committee is very important to the town of Wareham and to a lot of businesses and to Mr. Sullivan's budget as well, because they do generate a lot of food tax and parking tax that come into the town. And as Mr. Sullivan proved to you this year, that those kiosks paid a lot of money in, and we can't afford to be losing revenue to support this amendment. Please vote this down. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to give you some actual financial facts. I sat for my first 5 years on the FinCom as a member. Am I actually talking? I don't know. Okay. As a member of the Community Events Committee, as representative with the legislature, that a member of the FinCom has to sit on that committee. This was a dream of a former Board of Selectmen member, and it was approved at this town meeting as being beneficial to the town. I believe that the amount of money that is expended every year in onset for the fireworks is between $17,000 and $18,000 that is put out by the Community Events Committee. What that pays for is police and fire and harbor master, municipal maintenance to clean up for 2 days, regardless of whether it happens on the Saturday or the Sunday due to weather, okay? That money has been earmarked since 2007. It used to be almost $25,000 was what when I first sat on that committee for that expense. The fireworks in this town will not happen without Community Events Committee, because that $18,000 is going to have to come out of your budget now. The police, the municipal maintenance, et cetera, are going to have to pay their own expense. So now you've just reduced the $60,000 that they asked for to $45,000. You take off the $18,000 that we earmarked for the 4th of July fireworks, and you're left with $27,000.
30 seconds.
I really, really urge you to shoot down this amendment to start with and support this program that was a dream of a lot of people in increasing tourism in this town. And I'm not sure of what the law, maybe Mr. Bowen can clarify, but there is a specific use for hotel motel tax, and I don't have that on me at this point, but it is supposed to be used for tourism.
Time.
All of it.
Before I go to the next speaker, I think I see Mrs. Martin standing. Just so you're not standing for nothing, you have used all your time and do not have any more speaking time. Mr. Camerano.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I don't know if everyone here actually realizes, but the community events gave us the money for the kiosks. Now, the town has benefited tremendously from the parking revenues from the kiosks, and they gave up about half of their funds that year so that we could start this program. And I think that this committee deserves the right to continue doing what they do to bring tourism in, because the money from the parking revenue has been tremendously successful this year, and they only get a small portion of it. And without community events, there would be no parking, kiosk or no revenue to the town. So I think the town owes this committee to continue operating and bringing in tourism into the town. Thank you.
Mrs. Whiteside?
Thank you. I took the opportunity to actually watch the tape of the town meeting where this article was originally passed. The proponent spoke at length about seed money for programs to bring in tourists and to increase tourism in Wareham. At the time that he made the suggestion, which was adopted by the town meeting, there was a list of events that had previously been sponsored by another committee that actually predated this committee. There was a community events committee prior to the 2001 one. In the past, those community events included the Christmas parade and Santa at Spillane with hot chocolate and cookies for everyone. It included a Memorial Day parade. It included a Veterans Day parade. Those were downtown Wareham events as opposed to downtown Onset events. I don't have a problem with the concept, but as a previous speaker said, we are in a financial crisis. This was supposed to be seed money. Seed money means that the committee, the business will grow and be able to stand on its own feet. I don't see that Wareham, downtown Wareham, has benefited from these funds. Yes, they may have helped pay for the parking kiosks, but in point of fact, this has been funded illegally since 2007. It was legally funded once.
Thank you.
So
Ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching the hour of 10 o'clock, and by virtue of our charter, we can only go until the hour of 10. I will accept a motion to go beyond the hour of 10.
So
if
moved.
Do I have a second? If someone would like to go to the microphone and make a motion to continue beyond the hour of 10, and I will accept that motion if there's a second.
So moved, Madam Moderator.
So I need to have a motion to go beyond the hour of 10 and then specify what you would like to do after 10.
Madam
Eddie
Moderator,
Pasevich.
Wait, just a minute. Mr. Pasevich was up first. I'll recognize Mr. Pasevich.
I'd introduce a motion to go beyond the hour of 10 to finish this article only.
Do I have a second? Have a motion to go beyond on the hour of 10 o'clock to finish this article only. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
We will go, it passes by a majority. We will go beyond the hour of 10 just for this article only. I believe the next person up was Mr. on my left.
Mr. Paulides. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Through you to the Town Administrator, how much money does the town expect to generate this fiscal year from the parking and the hotel motel tax?
124,000 is what we brought in from June, even though that was a previous fiscal year. So that'll give you the estimate with June, July, and August. We currently have in the account a little over 124,000. Hotel motel excise tax, roughly 44,000. Obviously, once the Marriott's online, that will increase significantly.
Okay, thank you.
On my right?
I think
Moderator.
Hi, Sharon, Precinct 3. I think these events committees have done wonderful for Wareham. It gives the kids something to do. It gives the people that can't travel something to do. I think we need to support it as a town. We've seen a lot of good things happen, Swan Festival, Cape Verdean Festival, many things that residents in the area have enjoyed, and I think that we at least need to give them the support that they need.
I thought I I saw a gentleman standing. Gentleman on my left, do you wish to speak to the article?
Yes, Bill Lockwood, Precinct 3. I would like to speak to the article, just getting out of the way of traffic. I'd urge the body to support the article in its amended form, for, at least in terms of cost. I don't believe we, and question to the chair, there is no amendment formally before the body at this point, is that correct?
I'm sorry, I can't understand your
There
question.
is no amendment currently before the body, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, then I would urge the assembled body to vote for the article. I am chairman of the Blues Festival for several of the number of years that I've been involved with it, and of the budget that we develop for that event, some portion of that does come from the community events, and it can make the difference between profitability or not profitability, and that can make the difference between putting on events for other events, such as the Halloween event, the Christmas in the Parks event, others that are not funding themselves. And so I would urge the body to vote for the article.
Selectman Titlebaum.
I move the question.
Question has been moved. It's not debatable. It requires a 2/3 vote. I would ask for a unanimous vote. All those in favor of moving the question, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The question is moved. The vote will now come on Article 21 as it appears on the screen before you, as amended. No.
What is the screen has been amended. That is amended.
The screen has been amended. That is it.
That is new dollar amount.
Right. The motion before you has the dollar amount amended down to $45,000. Requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion before you, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The amendment passes. The amendment now becomes the main motion. No, that was the main motion? Oh, sorry, I apologize, the hour is late. That was the main motion, correct? Yeah, that was the main motion. I would accept a
I'll move.
motion to adjourn until tomorrow night.
Madam Moderator, I move to adjourn tonight meeting.
Tomorrow night at 7:00 p.m.
Yeah, tomorrow at 7.
Tomorrow night, a motion before us to adjourn until tomorrow night at 7 p.m. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Please come back and return tomorrow night. We do have some money articles that need your attention.